Welcome to this training session on caring for your collection without costing the earth, achieving UN Sustainable Development Goals with your collection. We're delighted to be speaking at this conference. Hi, I'm Ben Mellum of Mortice Consulting, and we're going to be taking you through in the next 20 minutes a presentation about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for those of you who don't know what they are, and then talk about how they could be applied both in a museum setting, but more particularly in relation to collection care. So as we go through this session today, we'll be talking through some of the key topics. We selected some of the themes that we think we can cover off in this session. And also later on in this conference, there will be a workshop that you can attend on the same theme where we'll be going into some of these in a lot more detail. But you should get a really healthy overview from this session today. So, as I've mentioned previously, I work in the cultural sector in the UK with museums and galleries across the United Kingdom. Looking at how they operate, maintain, develop their buildings. And increasingly, sustainability is the one common factor that seems to be appearing in every conversation. So as we work through today, I'm sure there's going to be many common themes that you're fully aware of, and some that you may not be. So hopefully we can really work through those together in this session. So there's some key themes. There's a lot of themes that we could be talking about, but the ones I want to be talking about today is, I believe, and I think you'll probably agree, that cultural heritage has a unique opportunity to lead change. We're going to be looking at that one there. Acknowledging that there's a lot of good work going on already, and museums are already supporting some of the Sustainable Development Goals, but there is more we can do. And this is hopefully kickstarting that conversation off today, along with this session and some of the other really great sessions that are happening as part of this conference as well. That we're in the middle of a pandemic. The fact we're here virtually delivering this conference is one of the outputs of that. But that sustainability needs to be integral to our recovery. We've got a lot of work to do as a sector to recover, to grow. And if we can build that recovery based on sustainable principles, we're going to be achieving more than one end to getting the sector back on its feet and making it a better, greener sector going forward as well. And we need to acknowledge that climate change is already having an impact on your collections, on your institutions. So we need to acknowledge that. And so we're not just impacting something that has nothing to do with us. We're part of a system where we'll bring together the response to the impacts and about how we can help to mitigate those impacts long term. And finally, and why I think this conference is a great opportunity to do this, as with many other forums that I try and get involved in wherever I can, collaboration is key for meaningful change. And if we're actually going to deliver meaningful change, it's going to be because we work together, we think together, we share ideas, and that's how we deliver best practice. So first of all, why are we talking about sustainability at all? Why not something else? Well, if you can put your minds back pre-COVID to the beginning of 2020, climate change and the environment and the ecological emergency and the climate emergency were actually top of the agenda. I don't know if you remember the wildfires that were taking place in Australia at the time, the Culture Declares initiative, the Extinction Rebellion protests happening across the UK, the school climate strikes. It was the hot topic, and 2020 was going to be the big year of us taking action. Unfortunately, this thing called COVID came along, which kind of stalled that slightly. And I'd say stalled because I think it's still been remaining there in the background. And as a result, we've been dealing with the impacts of COVID. We've been responding to those, and maybe we've put our blinkers back on and stopped thinking about the bigger problem. But now, although we are mid-pandemic at the point of this presentation being made, we are looking forward optimistically to a future where we are going to be coming out of this, and we need to think about recovering a sector that's been damaged by some of the longest closures in its history, that will be dealing with the economic impacts. And I think there's real opportunity here for environmental sustainable recovery, achieving broader UN Sustainable Development Goals, not just around environmental sustainability, can go hand in hand with economic sustainability. And we need to be thinking about that. So as we come out of this, you're going to hear a lot of organizations and a lot of politicians talking about building back greener, building back better. And I honestly believe that we can do that. I think if there's going to be change and transition, we should be thinking about how we can build back in a more sustainable way. So what has this actually got to do with collection care? We're talking about global issues around climate change and ecological emergency. So what does your collection and the storage of your collection have to do with this? Well, quite a lot, because the solutions to resolving any of these big picture issues are going to come by local action. And your collection is having an impact whether you realize it or not. And I'm sure many of you are fully aware that it does. Collections require resources to maintain them. You need to maintain the environmental conditions. They need to be in buildings. They take human resources. They take financial resource. Those resources come at a price. and we want to make efficient use of those resources and make sure that we're not using more than we have to do the important job of caring for our collections. They're going to be in these buildings, and these buildings have an impact themselves, and we really need to think about that built environment piece as well. We need to acknowledge that the collections themselves are being impacted by climate change. If we're primarily talking to a UK audience here, but we're experiencing frequent weather events. They're getting more extreme in one direction or another. We're getting hotter summers, we're getting wetter, more intense periods of the winter, and this is impacting our collections. So we're having to think about this, and again, using more resources in terms of responding to these issues. But also, I think we need to look more broadly, and we're talking about the UN Sustainable Development Goals today. So this is not just about environmental sustainability. That collections can be a really important source of information. We are custodians of information that can equally play a part in responding to climate change and helping us to understand some of these impacts that we're dealing with at the moment. And also that conserving and sharing cultural heritage is shown to be a significant contributor towards achieving some of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's got a really strong part to play in this. So we need to protect it, we need to access it, we need to make it accessible, and these are the things that we're going to be talking about today. So what are the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Well, there's 17 of them. They go through, they're 1 to 17, there's a lot of information available out there. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions and partnerships to achieve those goals. So this is very aspirational. These are covering a broad range of topics. And I think it's really interesting that we talk about the context of sustainability, even the word. So for a lot of people, when we talk about sustainability, they immediately think about environmental and ecological sustainability, but we're talking much broader here in terms of the aspirations. And museums, by their very nature, are already looking to achieve a lot of these, but there's more the work that can be done. So there's some really good resources available. There's a great video from the UN, and we're going to put the link up on the screen now. And if you wanted to pause this presentation and go away and watch this, it's a great introduction to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and why we need to act upon these now. So you could go and look at that now, or you can carry on watching this presentation. So we just ran through the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I could go into each of them in quite a bit of detail, but we've only got a very short session today. But first of all, I think really important to think about is, well, so we've got all these sustainable development goals, great, and I'm sure most of you would look through that list and go tick, 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 these are things I need to be thinking about, well done. But how do we actually go and apply these in a museum setting? Is it possible? Is it something that we should be thinking about, and why is it important? So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge that there are obstacles and barriers within cultural heritage to allowing institutions and organizations and individuals to actually implement these sustainable development goals. I mean, the big one that we're all feeling at the moment is probably lack of resources, time, money, people, expertise. So when you've got varying and conflicting requirements in your time, how can you make time for these? I think I've got a view that actually I think you need to make time for these. I think these need to be central, and actually they'll prove their worth if you look to integrate them. And more broadly about museums, there are misconceptions out there that museums are purely there about as purposes is to protect the past and protect our history, rather than encouraging thought, discussion, dialogue, and action on future events. So this is a point we made earlier about whether museums can actually, through their activity, not only have a direct impact from the actions that they're taking, but equally spread those ideas, build the conversation, and have a much bigger impact than they could just purely have on their own. There's a lack of legislation support. There's some great resources out there, which we'll hopefully go on to talk about, but it is limited. There's some great conversations, but we're looking for real kind of practical advice about what institutions could do. The piece of advice I'd be giving you that comes right the way through here is the network, which conferences like this can do, and they are fantastic opportunities. Speak to your peers, find out what everybody else is doing, share best practice, and that's how we're going to build real, meaningful and lasting solutions. But a number of you are also, you're dealing with historic buildings. They may be part of the collection itself, or they are housing your collection. And there's a lot of resistance and saying, well, we can't do a lot. We've got a historic building. There's a fantastic amount of work that's been done recently about the work that can be done. And actually, the most sustainable building is the one that's already there anyway. So by its very nature, knocking down a historic building and then building a brand new building that may be more energy efficient in the overall scheme of things may be far more impactful than making alterations to that existing historic building. So, and there's some great advice out there. I know Historic England and Historic Environment Scotland particularly have put out some really useful advice, and that's available online readily easily. So it can seem quite overwhelming. So this is one of the pieces where there's so much to be done. When you look at all those sustainable development goals, you think, well, what can I actually do? My view is doing something is better than doing nothing. So it's also kind of being kind to yourselves and saying, well, look, we can't fix every single problem here, but if I make a contribution and if everybody else does that, that's how we're going to move forward and make progress. So don't feel guilty if you're not doing everything you could be doing. Do what you can, and then hopefully we can build up, and that momentum will build by itself. So we're going to make change happen by working together, by collaborating and sharing those ideas between us. And why is it that cultural heritage particularly has a unique opportunity to lead change? Every sector has to think about this, but why this sector in particular? Well, if you think about it, the museums are there to preserve our cultural and natural heritage. This is embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals. We need to be protecting those. That is something that we should be doing for now and for future generations. They can make an impact through their resources and their operations. These are institutions that are open to the public, that are accessible, that are seen as leaders in many fields of thought. Why can't this be one of them? They interact with a whole range of individuals and organizations across society. They have a unique opportunity to kind of to reach into groups that other institutions might not be able to get into. And by doing that, they can really spread the message and build the conversation around sustainability well. They're trusted. These are organizations, particularly in a time of fake news and a lot of skepticism about any information that's being published. Museums remain organizations that are trusted in terms of the information and the way they engage with the public. So I think there's opportunity to build there. They're built as spaces for conversations and to encourage participation. And this is why bringing those people in together, they're fantastic forums for having these really difficult conversations that we need to be having in the next few years. And that they're used to facilitating interdisciplinary cooperation. They're used to getting different people together with different viewpoints and different ideas to work together. And they always feel like the perfect places for this conversation around sustainability and delivering it to be had. And as I said earlier, acknowledging that there's a lot of work already being done around the Sustainable Development Goals. Institutions are doing a lot of work around diversity, inclusion, education, environmental action, and they're undertaking a lot of work already. So I think a big part of the work that we need to do is acknowledge what we're doing and share that information. So we're not starting from today. We're not saying we've done nothing up until this point and we need to start doing everything. You need to acknowledge what you've done, learn from it, and that's where we can build through. And I think museums has done a fantastic amount of work already. A lot of the Sustainable Development Goals actually directly reference culture and heritage as being something that they're looking to preserve. And I think it's really important to recognise those. So we are, as I mentioned already, in the midst of a pandemic that will hopefully be moving into more of a recovery phase soon. And how can sustainability and those delivery of those Sustainable Development Goals be part of that recovery? Well, effectively, although it might feel at the moment for a number of organisations, the economic impacts are some of the biggest ones, we still need to be thinking about the social and environmental responsibilities as well. So all three of those, that ultimately you need to ensure the sustainability of your organisation. And in its simplest possible form, as an organisation, you use resources, whether that might be energy, whether that might be human, whether that might be intellectual property. That's all coming together within your organisation. And that's resource often costs money, more often than not costs money. So if you can apply sustainability principles to make sure you're being efficient in the resources you're using, not just in those that have a direct impact in the environment, but those that have an impact everywhere, that increased efficiency will often link through to economic efficiency. So for example, if you stripped it right back and we say we want to release fewer carbon emissions as an organization, well, that primarily involves using less utilities. So by using less utilities, you will be releasing less carbon, but you'll also be saving money because you'll be spending less money on utilities. So I'm oversimplifying what is quite a complex issue there, but fundamentally the principles are there, and if applied over a reasonable timescale, that you can save money and do the right thing at the same time, which feels like it's got to be a win-win for everyone. So I mentioned already, climate change is impacting your collection. There's very good data available from the Met Office. In the winter, we're having more instances of frequent heavy rainfall. Your gutter systems may be struggling to cope. The ones that have worked for hundreds of years, particularly on historic buildings, are now no longer coping. We're seeing increased instances of flooding and severe flooding, and in the summer of raised temperatures. All of these, your collection care needs to respond to, and you need to be thinking about how those come through. So that needs to be part of your planning now. And I think there needs to be an acknowledgement in the sector that climate change is having an impact on collection care. And that has to be a driver in terms of how we respond to the bigger issues at a global level, because they are having local impacts. There's a really good video from Historic Scotland, Historic Environment Scotland, and we're going to put the link up on the screen now. Again, if you wanted to pause and have a look, it's only a short video, about 2 minutes long, that sets out how climate is beginning to impact on Scottish heritage in this instance, but I think it's applicable in a much wider context. So the final point I'm going to make in today's session, and it's probably the big one, is collaboration is the key for meaningful change. This conference, a fantastic opportunity to share ideas. I'd be encouraging you to do that off the back of this one. Take the opportunities up to have conversations, to share best practice. People are publishing information online all the time. It can feel overwhelming. The best thing to do is come together with networks of your peers to discuss those ideas, to share best practice and ask questions. I think fundamentally people want to share the information. People want to do the right thing. So encourage knowledge sharing where you can. Look for case studies, and equally, if you're doing a really interesting project, talk about it. And it could be as simple as posts on social media. It could be about putting a blog onto your museum website, but do talk about the work you're doing, because that's how we build the conversation. There's a responsibility on you to share that. That as an organization, an institution, you may have access to bigger audiences. So think about sharing some of those ideas, engage them. And what increasingly we're seeing from organizations across various sectors is an increased honesty. And I think it's fine to say we don't have all the answers. But the first point to say, as in any situation, is acknowledge where the issue is, state where you are. And you never know that potentially some of those stakeholders, whether those be building users, museum visitors, may have really meaningful input into you making that change happen as well. So don't be afraid to talk. We need to bring together expertise and research. That more work needs to be done, and this is being pulled through wherever we can. And ultimately, that network is going to be important, whether that's an international, a national, a local, or even an institutional level. Have those conversations, make time to talk about sustainability, and that's where we get through. So I hope this has been interesting. We've tried to cover off a really big topic. As I said, there's going to be a workshop on the 29th with places bookable. And you can find myself, Ben Mullum, on social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn. And equally, Mortice Consulting, we're on all of those platforms as well. So go and find us. We're often publishing content. And please make contact with me, email me, direct message me. I'm happy to try and answer questions where I can and get involved in any conversations. So thank you for your time.